dive right, cause it can't miss. All about the game, that's a cold switch. Serving up the truth, call it ruthless. Tune in and get your fix from Blake and Vish Sports.
Let's talk about a quarterback who's actually struggling. And I think this situation is interesting because it goes beyond the poor play of the quarterback. Because this team, the Carolina Panthers, have $18 million guaranteed based on the fact that they took the fifth-year option for Sam Darnold, guaranteed in 2022. We also know that they have a really, really talented roster filled with players that could have success if they made a move at a Watson or a Rodgers or maybe a Carr or whoever becomes available this offseason. So, Blake, I'll ask you, what do you think the Carolina Panthers should do at quarterback moving forward? We know Sam Darnold's hurt. We know PJ Walker's going to start a little bit. I think we've seen enough of Sam Darnold to say he's a bust. He's not the quarterback that people thought he was. He wasn't a product of the Jets. He also was not a good quarterback. So, what do you think should be the resolution here?
Yeah, so I don't think this is a quick fix this season. I think this season's it is what it is. You have Darnold, you have PJ Walker. I kind of like the idea of seeing what you have in PJ Walker. He played a little bit last year, and I think he has a little bit this year too. And he's been, he was in the XFL, and he's been kind of exciting. He's made plays and all that. So maybe you roll the dice with him and see if he can string it along for a few games. If not, you have Darnold. But this season, the 2021 season, I don't think there's anything they can do now that just changes what they have at quarterback. Now, in the offseason, they have two routes they can go. They can either draft a guy in the first or second, but I think if you're going to draft one, may as well go first and see what you can develop him into and have Darnold be the stopgap. Or you can go the veteran route and maybe a guy like, I don't know, maybe they try Daniel Jones, or maybe they go with an older guy like, I don't know, maybe Jimmy G or someone like that could be a stopgap. I think those are really the two routes. I don't know if they should go the stopgap route. They just had Teddy Bridgewater. They had a ton of guys after Cam Newton's falling out season, like Kyle Allen and such, that it just didn't work. I think they just need to draft someone and maybe have them develop for 1 year while Sam Darnold's still, $18 million on the books. Just have him be the starter, and just really just see what you can develop one of these young guys into. And there's not a lot of this quarterback class, at least for 2022, is not as hyped as it was for 2021. There is no Trevor Lawrence, there's no Fields, there is no Zach Wilson, or at least that's how it is perceived to be. But there's guys like Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, Carson Strong out of Nevada. I guess you really wouldn't even...
Matt Corral.
Yeah, Matt Corral. I was going to say Spencer Rattler, but I don't think he's going first round anymore. But Sam Howell, too. There's a lot of guys that look like they might be first rounders, and I don't think they're going to have a top 5 pick. I don't know if they'll have a top 7 or 8 pick, but I think they'll definitely be within the first 14 picks. So one of those guys, whatever they like the most, I think they should take them, have Darnold start the year, or if they just want to have him even be the backup and just have him there. But I don't think you can continue to have Sam Darnold be the long-term solution to this quarterback issue.
Yeah, and I think Matt Rule has more or less said that right today. He said that everything is open at the quarterback position. And, I'm excited to see how PJ Walker plays. I thought he looked pretty good when he played last year. I thought he looked better than Teddy B did last year. He's got a stronger arm than him. I like him a lot. And this year when he played, it's been rough. But I think the big thing with Panthers quarterbacks, and I said this about Teddy Bridgewater, and I think it applied to Sam Darnold weeks 1, 2, 3, and I think it'll apply to PJ Walker. I think there's a massive difference between how they play with Christian McCaffrey on the field, especially with how Joe Brady uses him and Christian McCaffrey on the field, right? Sam Darnold looked competent, like a competent starting quarterback weeks 1 through 3. Why Christian McCaffrey played. Teddy Bridgewater to be with Christian McCaffrey would still be the Panthers quarterback, even at the price they were paying him. I think PJ Walker can be successful in his next few weeks starting, as long as Christian McCaffrey remains healthy, because I think that's how good Christian McCaffrey is. I think that's how good he fits their offense and all of that. So to me, that's one factor. And I think PJ Walker will prove himself to be a top-notch backup in the NFL. The second part of this is Sam Darnold. There's not really much they can do with him, right? I mean, you got $18 million guaranteed to tied up to him. So if I was the Panthers, I would take the dead cap, honestly. I would say screw the 3 picks. I would say do what the Rams did with Jared Goff, they have $30 million dead cap tied with Jared Goff. You have $23 million of cap space next year. I would take $18 million of dead money and just cut him. I don't know what value he brings as a backup. He's not durable. He's not a good quarterback. He doesn't play well for the pocket. He makes a couple of off schedule plays here and there, but you can't sustain yourself off of that. I mean, he's got a pretty quick release, but overall, I don't think he's that good of a quarterback. And so I would just cut him. And then you have options, right? Do you try and make the big move for Deshaun Watson? Well, I mean, you could try, right? You should try, but are you going to land Deshaun Watson? The odds of that for most teams is basically, I mean, it comes down to who he was. So that's questionable. You could go the stopgap route because, maybe the Niners cut Jimmy G or something like that, and you can side Jimmy G at a cheap price and have him. He fits the Joe Brady style offense, a lot of short passes, and we know Jimmy G is very good at throwing the ball short and intermediate over the middle of the field. So maybe that kind of works. But I don't think that's really a solution for them. I think you nailed the solution. And I think it should have been the solution from day one. I think they should have kept Teddy Bridgewater and picked Justin Fields or Mac Jones at 8, regardless of how good J.C. Horn looks, regardless of maybe how good Rashawn Slater would have been for them. You got to solidify the quarterback position in the NFL, especially when you have a DJ Moore on the outside and a Christian McCaffrey in your backfield, two of the better weapons in the NFL. And I think they just got to bite the bullet and take whichever quarterback they like best. And they got to now you get the rookie wage scale. So now even if you cut Sam Darnold, you're becoming cost effective over the long term. PJ Walker is cheap. Maybe he's kind of your stopgap until this rookie gets ready. He's not going to be the level of prospect, I don't think, of Mac Jones or Justin Fields, the two guys that would have been available at 8 if Carolina had not traded for Sam Darnold. But I think that's basically really their best possible solution right now because they have a really, really good roster with guys like Brian Burns and DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey, who are stars in this league. And Derek Brown is very good. JC Horn looks really good. CJ Henderson could become terrific. They don't want to waste this window, right? I mean, maybe they re-sign Gilmore too.
Yeah.
So, and he's playing lights out again. So, they do not want to miss out on this window. They got to get the quarterback position right, and they got to get it right fast. And Sam Darnold is nowhere near part of the solution for that.
No, and I think we can, even just coming back to it, in the offseason, at the time the trade was made, I know we were kind of on this, but it just didn't seem like a second rounder for him was a good idea. I think, personally, I would have said like a third or 1/3 or 1/4. Like, okay, I can justify that because you're getting a guy who was once a top 5 prospect and all that. But I want to say they traded a second and a fourth for someone who hasn't really shown much signs of being good. And the main excuse being, it's because of Adam Gase. And yeah, there is probably some truth to, not having good receivers, good running backs, good O-line even. But I mean, it's the difference between what Herbert did last year, and he's such an outlier, I know. But even when things weren't good, you could tell he was still a good quarterback. But with Darnold, it seemed like the Panthers were just praying that the reason Sam Darnold wasn't that good was because of how bad the Jets were and not his own maybe lack of skills. And that's a big risk right there that you're making and they took the 5th-year option too. If they would have came out and said, we just want to evaluate how he does this year, I would have said, okay, I actually like that move. You're risking a second rounder for a quarterback who could be or was once thought of as a top 5 guy, right? But you solidified that you're paying him $18 million guaranteed without him playing a snap for your team and seeing if he is any good. That, I think, is where the line needs to be drawn, that it just wasn't the move to be made.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest detail. I think you nailed it. The fact that they took the 5th-year option to me is the biggest mistake in all of this. I don't think trading for Sam Darnold, in theory, no matter what you thought of him, right? You and I felt, yes, bad coaching. Yes, bad scheme. Yes, bad O-line. Yes, bad receivers. We also said, yes, bad quarterback too. It was all of those things put together, right? I mean, Adam Gase honestly deserves an apology for shielding Sam Darnold from so much criticism because so many people were so obsessed with their pre-draft analysis that felt, Sam Darnold, the classic QB from USC, that was a bit overhyped coming out of college. But that's a rant for another day. if they did that and they just said, okay, we'll take a risk. It's a rental. We'll see how it goes. If it goes great, we're signing him long term. So screw the $18 million guaranteed. I would have respected that. I would have been like, yeah, that's a shrewd move. Like, okay, maybe you're not convinced that Justin Fields or Mac Jones will be available or eight, or maybe you're not convinced that Justin Fields or Mac Jones is the future quarterback. So take J.C. Horn, who's played really well prior to him getting injured, and ride it out and see 1 year with a guy who was talented enough to be the number 3 overall pick in the draft. Well, taking his fifth-year option is really what puts them in this situation. They don't have any answers now because they owe this guy $18 million guaranteed, and he's shown at no point in his career that to play anywhere near that value, and that's a big problem. I think both of us agree that the solution is go find somebody in the draft, but we'll have to see what Carolina eventually does, because I think that for such a young, talented, promising team with two pretty decent coordinators in Phil Snow and Joe Brady, and Matt Rule look promising as a head coach, this one move of picking up Sam Darnold's fifth-year option could ruin all of this. And they have so many talented players like Derek Brown, Brian Burns, Christian McCaffrey, obviously, DJ Moore. It would suck to watch it get ruined because of J.C. Horn. It would suck to watch this get ruined by this.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess, it's easy saying this with hindsight. And although at the time we were saying they shouldn't do this, but if you are the GM and you don't pick up his fifth-year option and you decline it, what are you saying? Are you saying you're not confident in your quarterback? I feel like if they didn't do that, it would also be sending a message saying, we don't really think Darnold is that good. Because if we think he's really, really good, we're just going to pick up his option. And I think that's maybe a bit of a reason why.
No, I totally understand the optics of that, and I think that definitely had something to do with it. You're absolutely right. I just think that you can't worry about those optics. You have to make him prove it. He's proven nothing over his first 4 years in the NFL, and he's gotten more opportunities than a lot of people who've proven next to nothing as well. Like, there's a lot of other guys in Sam Darnold's situations who the situation hasn't taken the excuse for them. They've taken a lot of blame and they've been written off. I mean, Mitchell Trubisky is one guy that comes straight to mind. He never got a second chance to start somewhere. He had to go be a backup in Buffalo. So I think that I get what you're saying, but I think from day one they should have never taken that fifth-year option.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, but it's still interesting that maybe that had more of a impact on the entire decision than we would know, and maybe it didn't.
And here's another name, Drew Lock, right? He didn't get that long of a leash. Heck, even Tua, right? We aren't the most pro Tua people, but the Dolphins have written off Tua way faster, and Tua, to his credit, has shown a lot more than Sam Darnold showed in his time starting with the Jets. Darnold's was.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Sam Darnold's projection was based on the fact that he has a visibly high upside. Tua doesn't have a visibly high upside, but he's been a consistently better quarterback than what Sam Darnold was.
Tua has been good this year.
He's been okay, yeah.
I know he's not as good as Herbert and Burrow, but Tua, their three linemen are tied for first in pressures given up. They have three tied for number one. I don't know what you do with that.
They've drafted horribly around him, right? Like Austin Jackson was a bad pick. There's been a lot of other bad picks outside of Tua. He's taken the brunt of it because he's basically not as good as Justin Herbert, and that sucks. But I mean, I think the biggest thing with Tua is there's little upside to me. He could maybe be a pretty good quarterback in the NFL, but is that the value you want from the number 5 overall pick? This is an absolute conversation for another day. But my point was more to say he hasn't gotten the chances from both the media and his own organization the way Sam Darnold did.
One last thing on him too. If you watch any of those press conferences, those media reporters are ruthless. If you think Grant is bad and is pressing some buttons, you should watch the Dolphins because they nonstop just talk about Tua and Deshaun Watson. I mean, I just feel bad for him at this point because it's out of his control. Brian Flores is just getting grilled up there saying stuff about Tua and Deshaun Watson. I think the GM's days are not much longer going to be. He won't be there too much longer with this whole fiasco going on.
To the reporters there, Grant would be considered tame. They asked. He's
Would
the
be.
nicest guy, and they ask him like point blank to his face, like, "How do you feel about the fact that this team does not think you're good?" They ask questions like that are basically the overlying. They don't word it that exact way, but the overlying theme of what they're hinting at, it's comes out very clear that that's what they're hinting at.
Yeah. Yep. Grant would be a tame man in Miami, which is interesting to think about.